Tax is actually a compulsory payment imposed by the government against which no specific services can be expected from the government. There are two types of taxes: direct taxes and indirect taxes. In this chapter, we shall be discussing primarily about indirect taxes. The first subtopic under taxation is how taxes on buyers affect the market outcomes. Now, in this figure 6.7, we find that original demand curve D and original supply curve S intersect each other at point E. So this E is the point of equilibrium. And corresponding to this equilibrium point, OP is the equilibrium price and OQ is the equilibrium quantity. Now, when the government imposes tax on the buyer, there will not be any impact on the supply curve because sellers will have the same incentive to produce the concerned product. But now, buyers will have to pay more tax to the government as the product has become expensive in comparison to the previous situation. So in the current situation, the buyers will feel that the product is relatively less attractive for them. And this is shown by a leftward shift of the demand curve from D to D1. And the equilibrium quantity demanded falls from OQ to OQ1, corresponding to new equilibrium point E1. Now in this figure, we find that the price which is paid by the buyer will be equal to OP2 and the price received by the seller according to the new equilibrium point E1 will be OP1. So the tax per unit imposed by the government on the buyers is given by P1, P2. And the total tax revenue for the government will be equal to the quantity OQ1 or P1E1 multiplied by P1, P2. So this is given by the area of the rectangle in this diagram. So here we find that the price received by the seller is less, but the price paid by the buyer is more. And the difference between the two is the tax revenue received by the government. And this tax revenue per unit can also be understood as the difference between the two demand curves. Now, in case we want to examine as to how much tax burden is borne by the buyer and how much tax burden is borne by the seller, then we will have to make comparison between the pre-tax situation and the post-tax situation. In the pre-tax situation, the price was OP. Now the price paid by the buyer is OP2. So the difference PPP2 is the burden of tax on the buyer. And since seller is receiving only OP1 price after the imposition of tax, so remaining part of the tax is borne by the seller, which is equal to PP1. So the tax per unit is P1, P2. The burden on the buyer is PP2. That is the amount by which higher price is being paid. And the burden on the seller will be PP1. That is the amount by which less amount is being received by the seller. Now we have the next subtopic, how taxes on sellers affect the market outcome. When tax is imposed on the buyer, the demand curve shift to the left, implying that buyer will have to feel the burden, buyer will have to pay more for the commodity. Ultimately, the tax burden may be shared between the buyers and sellers. Now, when tax is imposed on the seller, it is the supply curve that shift to the left, indicating that the seller will have to bear the burden immediately. But depending upon the values of elasticity of demand and elasticity of supply, the tax burden is shared between the buyers and the sellers. Figure 6.8 shows that initially the equilibrium is at point E, where original demand curve D and original supply curve S intersect each other. Equilibrium price is OP and equilibrium quantity is OQ. When tax is imposed by the government on the seller, supply curve will shift to the left. The new equilibrium point will be E1, where the original demand curve cuts the new supply curve S1. The new price is OP1 and the new quantity is OQ1. In this diagram, it is clear that the price paid by the buyer is OP1, whereas the price received by the seller given by original supply curve, it is OP2. And the tax per unit is given by P1, P2, which is equal to the gap between the two supply curves. And the two supply curve means supply curve before imposition of tax and supply curve after imposition of the tax. Out of P1, P2 tax per unit, the tax burden borne by the buyer will be PP1. That is the amount by which buyer is paying higher price. And the burden borne by the seller will be PP2. That is the amount by which lesser price is being received by the seller. This tax per unit P1, P2 is equal to the difference between the two supply curves. And when this tax per unit is multiplied by equilibrium new quantity OQ1, we shall be getting the total tax revenue of the government, which is given by the shaded area not done in this diagram. It is P1, P2 tax per unit multiplied by OQ1 or P1 even. There is a special type of tax that is imposed in many developed countries of the world. It is payroll tax. We all know that employees are on the payroll of the employer. So this payroll tax is a tax which is imposed by the employer. And when this tax is imposed by the employer withholds the pay of the employees on their behalf on the basis of their wages or salaries. The government uses this revenue to fund some welfare programs like social security, healthcare, unemployment compensation, workers' compensation, and sometimes local government authorities also require some tax to maintain and improve the local transportation conditions. This payroll tax is actually a tax on the wages, and the burden of this tax is shared between the firms and the workers. In order to understand as to how much burden is borne by the firm and how much burden is borne by the workers, we look at figure number 6.9. And in this figure, demand and supply curves intersect each other at point E. And corresponding to this equilibrium point, the equilibrium wage rate will be OW and the number of workers employed corresponding to this point will be OL. Now suppose payroll tax imposed by the government is equal to W1, W2. And when this payroll tax is imposed, the wages received by the workers fall, while the wages paid by the firms rise. So here, though employer may be paying more wages to the workers, that means higher than the initial equilibrium wage rate without taxes, because these higher wages are partly serve the purpose of tax which is going to the government in the form of payroll tax. So in this figure 6.9, payroll tax is W1, W2. OW1 is the wage firm is paying to the worker, that is more than the equilibrium wage rate OW. But the workers are receiving wages equal to OW2. W1, W2 is the amount of payroll tax going to the government. Here we find that out of this payroll tax of W1 and W2, WW1 is borne by the firm because the firm is paying this much additional wages to the workers, while WW2 is the portion of payroll tax which is borne by the workers, because by this much amount less wages are being received by the workers. So it is clear from this figure that with imposition of this payroll tax by the government, the burden is shared between the buyers, and buyers means the buyers of the services of the worker, which is the employer, and workers who sell their services to the employer. Now, we will explain the relationship between elasticity and tax incidence. There is an important relationship between elasticity of demand, elasticity of supply, buyer's burden, and seller's burden. It is clear from this mathematical relationship that buyer's burden is directly proportional to elasticity of supply, but inversely proportional to elasticity of demand. That means lesser elasticity of supply would mean lesser burden of the buyer, and vice versa. Similarly, seller's burden is directly proportional to elasticity of demand and inversely proportional to elasticity of supply. Now we shall discuss certain cases. There are two important cases which we are discussing here. The case number 1, where we have less elastic demand curve but more elastic supply curve. And this is shown in figure 6.10, where elasticity of demand is less but elasticity of supply is more. Demand curve is here steeper one that indicates low elasticity of demand, but supply curve is flatter one that indicates high elasticity of supply. Now suppose tax imposed is equal to P1, P2. Here buyer is paying the price which is equal to OP2, whereas seller is receiving the price which is equal to OP1. So P1, P2 is the amount of tax per unit, corresponding to equilibrium point E, where demand and supply curves are intersecting each other. Equilibrium price is OP. So in this diagram, it is clear that buyer is bearing PP1, rather I would say buyer is bearing PP2 burden, whereas seller is bearing the burden equal to PP1. Seller was supposed to receive OP price. Buyer was supposed to pay OP price before tax imposition. After imposition of the tax, buyer is paying OP2, so PP2 is the burden on the buyer. That is the additional amount that buyer has to pay. And seller is bearing burden equal to PP1, that is the lesser amount being received by the seller. So in this figure, it is clear that buyer's burden is more than the seller's burden. And if you look at that relationship, we will find that buyer's burden is directly proportional to elasticity of supply. And in this case, we find that elasticity of supply is more. So buyer's burden is more. And elasticity of demand is low. So seller's burden is less. Seller's burden is directly proportional to elasticity of demand. So with low elasticity of demand, seller's burden is low in this diagram. Buyer's burden is more because buyer's burden is directly proportional to elasticity of supply, and this elasticity of supply is greater in this diagram. Similarly, we can study the second case where demand curve is more elastic and supply curve is less elastic. This is shown in figure number 6.11. Supply curve is steeper, indicating low elasticity of supply. Demand curve is flatter, indicating high elasticity of demand. The equilibrium price is OP before imposition of the tax. And suppose tax imposed is equal to P1, P2. The burden of this tax on the buyer will be PP2, that is the amount by which higher payment is being made by the buyer. Seller burden is equal to PP1, that is the amount by which lesser amount is being received by the seller. In this figure, burden on the seller is more. The reason is demand elasticity is higher, and there is direct relationship between elasticity of demand and seller's burden. And as far as buyer's burden is concerned, since elasticity of supply is low, buyer's burden is low in this case. So we can conclude that tax burden falls more heavily on the side of the market that is less elastic. So in figure 6.10, demand curve is less elastic. So there will be more burden on the buyer because tax burden falls more heavily on the side that is less elastic. We all know that whenever we go for purchasing any product which is inelastic in demand, that means we do not mind even in paying higher price. But when elasticity is high, we are very sensitive to the change in the price. So in this first diagram, since supply is very elastic, so seller is more sensitive to the price changes. That is why seller is bearing less burden. But in the case of figure 6.11, supply elasticity is low, so seller is bearing more burden. Deadweight loss term can be understood by understanding the term dead. We all know that howsoever close a person may be, but after the death of the person, except our emotions or sentiments, the body is worthless. It is a sort of weight. That is why last rites are performed immediately after the death of the person. So in the case of death weight loss also, we use the same concept. That means in case there are certain activities which are benefiting consumers or producers or the government, that means at least somebody is being benefited by any action. So it is not a loss for the economy. But suppose because of some action or inaction, nobody gains, maybe because of less production, then that situation is called as the situation of dead weight loss. We have already studied about impact of imposition of tax on the buyer and seller, which we know that the same is shared between the buyers and the sellers. And consequently, there are shifts in the demand or supply curves to the left or upward. Now here we will do one more thing. We will be computing the dead weight loss in the diagram. In order to show the dead weight loss of taxation, we are going to use the same tools of welfare economics like producer surplus, consumer surplus, and tax revenue. Things will be clear from figure number 6.12, where demand and supply curves are intersecting each other at point E. So E is the equilibrium point. Corresponding to this equilibrium point, price before imposition of the tax is OP. Quantity before imposition of tax is OQ. When tax is imposed, say equal to P1, P2, we will notice that price paid by the buyer will be equal to OP1 and the price received by the seller is equal to OP2. And the difference between the two will be tax per unit, which is equal to P1, P2. Here, buyer is paying more price than the equilibrium price by P1, P. Seller is receiving less price than the equilibrium price by an amount equal to PP2. So we can say tax burden on the buyer is equal to PP1 and tax burden on the seller is equal to PP2. When this tax is imposed, the new equilibrium quantity will be OQ1. In this diagram, we can compute consumer surplus, producer surplus, and the tax revenue. Consumer surplus is the payment made by the consumers which are less in comparison to their willingness price. That means the difference between what consumer is willing to pay and the amount actually paid by the consumer. Suppose a consumer goes to the market, he is prepared to purchase a product at 100 rupees, but suppose actually he is making payment of only 80 rupees, then 20 rupees will be consumer surplus, bonus or benefit to the consumer. In this diagram, consumer surplus is given by the difference between the area under demand curve and the payments made by the consumer. Area under the demand curve is considered up to point E and payment made by the consumer is OP multiplied by OQ. The difference is shown by the sum of three areas A, B, and C. So we can say area A plus B plus C is consumer surplus. That is the difference between amount consumer is willing to pay and the amount actually paid by the consumer. Now similarly, we can find out producer surplus. Producer surplus is given by the difference between the actual payment received by the seller and the minimum expectations of the seller given by the supply curve. So in this diagram, the difference between actual payment received, which is OPEQ, and the area under supply curve corresponding to the equilibrium point is given by the sum of three areas D, E, and F. So producer surplus in this diagram is the sum of three areas D, E, and F. So we can say when we consider area above the equilibrium price, that becomes consumer surplus, the benefit going to the consumers. When we consider area below equilibrium price but above supply curve, it is showing benefit to the producers or sellers, that is producer surplus. So the total surplus is equal to A plus B plus C plus D plus E plus F. Now this is the situation when no price tax was imposed by the government. Now suppose the government imposes the taxes. When the government imposes the taxes, the welfare of the economy gets reduced. because total surplus after imposition of tax will be A plus B plus D plus F. That is the sum of these four areas. Areas A plus B will indicate consumer surplus after imposition of the tax. Area C, rather I would say D plus F, will show the producer surplus after the imposition of the tax. New consumer and producer surplus are also found out by using the same logic. We find that the welfare of the economy after imposition of tax is reduced by area C plus E. This area C is neither going to the consumer nor to producers. It is just a waste. Now, out of A plus B area going to the consumers, the area B is to be transferred to the government as tax. Similarly, the sum of the areas D plus F going to the producers, area D is to be transferred to the government as tax. So we can say finally, this area shown in figure 6.12 is the consumer surplus. Area F shows the producer surplus. Some of the areas B and D will show the tax revenue. And the area C plus E is neither going to the consumers nor to the producer, and even it is not going to the tax authorities or the government. Though C plus E area is a waste, and this is called as dead weight loss. So dead weight loss of taxation has been shown in this figure 6.12 by the shaded area, and it is equal to the sum of the areas C and E. So we can say before tax imposition, consumer surplus is A plus B plus C. After tax imposition, consumer surplus is A. Producer surplus before tax imposition is D plus E plus F. After tax imposition, producer surplus is F. And the government revenue is equal to B plus D. Total surplus before tax imposition is equal to the areas A plus B plus C plus D plus E plus F. And total surplus after tax imposition is equal to areas A plus B plus D plus F. We find that consumer surplus has been decreased by amount shown by the area B plus C, and producer surplus has been decreased by the amount shown by D plus E. And in this case, the government benefit is area B plus D. And finally, we can say change in total surplus or dead weight loss of taxation is equal to the area C plus E. Since it is a loss, we have a negative sign. Now we discuss the factors on which dead weight loss depends, or you can say the determinants of the dead weight loss. The major determinants of the dead weight loss are elasticities of demand and supply. Greater the elasticity of supply and demand, greater is going to be the amount of dead weight loss of tax. This dead weight loss is measured by the area of the triangle between supply and demand curve. We have already explained the same. We can understand the impact or effect of elasticities of demand and supply through figure number 6.13. There are four parts of this figure. In part A and in part B, we find that elasticities of supplies are different. In figure 6.13a, supply curve is steep, indicating low elasticity of supply or inelastic supply. In figure 6.13b, elasticity of supply is high. This is shown by flatter supply curve. For the same tax per unit, which is measured by the gap between demand and supply curve, we find that there is large deadweight loss of tax when the elasticity of supply is high. That means deadweight loss shown by the shaded area in figure 6.13a and b, it is greater with elastic supply curve and it is lesser with inelastic supply curve for the same tax per unit, that is for the same gap between demand and supply curves. Now we have two remaining parts of figure 6.13, C and D part. In 6.13C, demand curve is inelastic, whereas in 6.13B, demand curve is elastic. Here also we find that with less elastic demand, there is small deadweight loss of tax, but there is large deadweight loss of tax when the elasticity of demand is high. In both the cases, tax per unit shown by the gap between demand and supply curve are assumed to be equal. Now let us discuss the determinants of loss and tax revenue. We will consider three types of taxes. Then we will study the relationship between amount of tax and its relationship with the deadweight loss. Tax may be small, medium, or large in different situations. Other factors of market are assumed to be constant. Deadweight loss has been shown by the area of the triangle formed between the supply and demand curve. Through figure 6.14, we find that as the size of tax rises, the area of the triangle formed between demand and supply curves, which represent the deadweight loss, becomes larger and larger. We also find that deadweight loss of tax rises even more faster as the tax rate or size of the tax increases. So we have figure 6.14. There are three parts of this figure. We show the impact of rise in size of tax on the tax revenue. In figure 6.14a, tax per unit is very small, shown by the gap between demand and supply curves. In figure 6.14b, tax per unit increases, and this also leads to increase in the tax revenue, as shown by greater tax revenue area. When we further increase the rate of tax shown by figure 6.14c, we find now the tax revenue has come down. But the other impact of tax per unit is that as we increase the tax per unit, the deadweight loss shown by the shaded area keeps on increasing. So we find that there is a positive relationship between the deadweight loss and the tax size or tax rate. This is shown by figure 6.15a, that as the tax size or tax rate per unit rises, there is increase in the deadweight loss. And this rise is taking place at increasing rate. But when we study the relationship between the tax rate and tax revenue, we find that it rises in the beginning, as shown by figure 6.14 also, where we find that tax revenue is rising when we move from 6.14a to 6.14b. But when we move to 6.14c, the tax revenue falls. So this is also shown in figure 6.15b part, that when tax rate per unit rises, tax revenue rises in the beginning, reaches the maximum point, and then starts coming down. So the relationship between tax size and tax revenue is positive in the beginning, and it is negative ultimately. This inverted U-shaped curve shows the relationship between tax size and the tax revenue. And it was explained for the first time by Laffer, and after his name, the curve showing the relationship between tax size and tax revenue is also called as Laffer curve.